When did I go from the point where I drank with my friends at a party or something, and when I begin to drink way ahead of them? Mm-hmm. And I can't, you tend, I find, to get with people who are heavier drinkers without realizing what you're doing. And now that I'm a non-drinker altogether, I find that I've lost most of my friends who drank very heavily.
Can you look at old shows that you've done and tell when you were crocked, or were you ever in your
Never.
work?
I was never crocked. I love that. During work.
Yeah.
I did not drink before work or during work or ever in the daytime, which was my own particular cop-out. I said, I'm not one of those guys who has to have a drink in the morning, and I do not drink in the daytime or at work. I drink at home after work. And that proves to me that I didn't have a drinking problem.
That's right. A lot of people say that. Are you kidding? I can go all day without a drink.
That's right. By gritting my teeth.
And yet they can be alcoholic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I begin to have the one symptom that you cannot avoid, and that's a personality change when I drank. Mm-hmm. A personality. I was always a very happy drunk if I got drunk. And I had a very high tolerance, which I found out later is one of the clues. If you have a very high tolerance and can stay on your feet, speaking clearly when everybody else is going down the drain, that's a sign that you may have a propensity physically for alcohol.
Yeah, you do hear that very thing used by people who say, well, so-and-so has no trouble because she never changes or he never changes. He can take 6 or 8 drinks and you'd never know it.
But strangely enough, one of the things that makes an alcoholic physically, physiologically, is that it is a depressant for most people. Mm-hmm. For an alcoholic, it is a stimulant. And as long as blood level of alcohol is on the rise, he'll perform better. His motor responses will be better. His concentration will be better. A normal person gets worse.
And my whole life, it held me back because I knew that I couldn't surrender to something nor give it up. It was like that definition of insanity. You do the same shit over and over again, expecting a different result. I was a complete prisoner of my own behavior.
Well, I think from a teenager on, I always had a low-level depression, and I found that music kind of relieved that, and I think that's why I went into music. And I found that when I was working, when I was on tour, I was fine, but it was when I got home after the tour, I didn't know what to do, and my drinking increased and increased and increased. I think anyone that is a little bit out of control and is drinking too much is not really in touch with what's going on around them.
Certainly, for me, what I realized was I was running to things to avoid tough feelings, painful feelings. I just didn't know how to deal with them, and looking for anything I found that I use for to escape those kinds of, I guess, difficult feelings. I don't know how better to describe it.
Happy to say, I was definitely addicted to alcohol, not shying away from that at all. And I just sort of said to myself, why am I enslaved to this drink? Why am I so obsessed by the idea of having this drink? I felt like I couldn't be social. I felt like I couldn't go to the pub and have a lime soda. I couldn't go out for dinner. I was really, really struggling.
Take courage, young man.
Well, Barry had a serious drink problem.
Barry would later explore his alcoholism with characteristic bravery in an interview with Michael Parkinson.
Normal people go to parties and get drunk. I used to get drunk and go to parties. And I was the last person in the world who thought I had a problem.
I did talk to him about it once, and I said, how bad was it? And he said it was destroying who I was. He was in danger of losing everything to alcohol.
It was becoming ever more apparent that something had to change.
I think there's gigantic swaths of the population who are very unfulfilled in their daily lives. And I know what that feels like. It was almost like alcohol allowed me to continue in this life that wasn't right for me, but it also prevented me from confronting it and making changes. And I think we live in a culture in which there's so much energy behind distracting us, whether it's video games or movies or Netflix or alcohol or whatever, pick your drug or gambling, whatever it is. We're never bored. We have a supercomputer in our pocket that can keep our mind occupied at all times. And you actually have to muster almost an innate superpower to get still and honest with yourself, to live and sit with your feelings. You have to go out of your way to do that. But in truth, that's the only way in which the truth of your circumstances is going to become evident to you.
I was not far off being alcoholic at one point. I was drinking far too heavily.
What kind of what period in your life was that?
Anything I poured down my throat. I mean, I had this discipline where I wouldn't drink after Thursday in the week, so I didn't do a show on Saturday. So I had 3 days where I suppose that kept me sane.
There's no degeneration or loose morals or character defects in an alcoholic. It's a physical disease. An alcoholic has a certain metabolism and glandular setups that make them chemically adapt themselves to alcohol. And for them it is a stimulant, and it is calories, and it is food, and their bodies adapt to it. And it is a true addiction. It has nothing to do with a person not being mature enough not to drink too much. It's a true addiction, like heroin addiction.
Does that mean that you were destined to become an alcoholic at birth if you ever took a drink?
That's true. Now, for me, it took many, many years as just a social drinker along with everyone else.
Yeah.
And of course, by the time I realized I was in trouble, I was too deluded, like most alcoholics are, to be able to understand what was wrong with me. There are a number of things that make a human being adapt to it. And they get to the place where they like the calories from alcohol because they're very easy to assimilate. And everything else is too hard to assimilate. Alcohol, diffuses across your brain instantly.
Yeah.
And it just is easier and people can go for weeks and weeks just on the calories from alcohol and no other food.
The big question that you must get asked all the time is how do you define alcoholism or alcohol dependency? Are they the same thing?
Well, we're trying to get away from that a bit these days. People say, well, I'm not like an addict. I'm not drinking very cheap cider and sleeping in the gutter, so I'm all right. And that's not true, because we know a third of the people coming into the liver unit with alcohol-related liver damage do not meet the criteria for alcoholism. They're just like you. They're just drinking more than they should. So we are trying to get a conceptual change now in how we view alcohol. And we're looking at this idea that it's heavy use over time. For a drug like alcohol, the more you use, the much greater the impact.
My feeling is that just because you're not waking up in a shop doorway at 4 a.m, or not waking up with a complete stranger, and not drinking sherry in the morning, just because you're not any of those things doesn't mean you're not alcohol dependent or have got some kind of dependency issue with alcohol.
Alcohol does calm the brain, but the effect is transient. And when the alcohol goes, the brain's actually a little bit more excitable. So people who drink to deal with anxiety, and we estimate maybe over half of all people who are alcohol dependent are drinking to deal with stress disorders like anxiety and depression. But it never cures them, because the brain adapts to the alcohol and the anxiety comes back more, the depression comes back more.
I've learned a lot about myself for the last, whatever it's been, so many years now. That there's a very compulsive side to my nature. Most people I know who are actors or musicians or poets or writers tend to be this way. It develops into self-destructiveness. It's addictive personality, as they call it now. The fashion is to call it self-addictive personality types. I was just like that. And at the time, when I was much younger, excuse me, it seemed to be a very attractive way of life. I thought it was the only way to live. Looking back on it, I'm glad I survived, because it finally rips you to pieces and you're dead, or finished, or unemployable. And I've learned something about myself, that part of me is still alive, but now it doesn't control my life. And I'm glad it's alive in me, because I feel restless most of my time, I'm never really satisfied. And yet, in a strange way, I'm very content in many areas of my life now. Probably because I'm getting older. But I wouldn't have missed any of it. I'm glad I am what I am. I'm glad I am what I was, for example. But I don't want to actively live like that anymore, because it's a short circuit, it's a dead end.
And as we go through adolescence, we make this transition where we now need the approval of our peers, right? It's a highly, highly stressful and anxious period of our lives, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stresses and anxieties of adolescence. Unfortunately, that becomes hardwired in their brains, and for the rest of their lives, when they suffer significant stress, they will not turn to a person, they will turn to the bottle. Social stress, financial stress, career stress.
Having acquired a taste for it, drinking became a key part of my life. Indoors, outdoors, wherever. If I could get hold of it, I'd drink it.
I was really, as a kid, I felt very unhappy and I felt sort of lonely and a bit sad. And I don't know if it's to do with my personal circumstances. I felt sort of alienated and unhappy and lonely. But for me, I couldn't cope with being me. And when, like, first of all, I had problems with food. Like when I first discovered chocolate as a little kid, I used to eat it compulsively.
Very addictive personality.
Yeah, I look to solve inner problems with external things. I'll use anything to stop myself feeling. And as a little kid, I felt very lonely, very sort of isolated and confused. And anything that could temporarily relieve that, I was very grateful for.
Yeah, I have a very addictive personality. Very, very addictive personality. I'm reading Elton John's book at the moment, and there's so many things that he did that I do. He would be like, I would just go on like an ice cream binge and eat 4 fucking desserts until I threw up, and I was like, oh.
It was fun in the early days because I thought, being shy, I can talk now, I can be one of the gang, I can fit in. It was a false alarm, and it set me on the road to near enough ruin.
I don't have a problem with drinking. I have a problem with the decisions I make once I go past that level of, right. You know, even into, you know, I've just been wanting to wake up 100% of the time.
Yeah, I get that.
And I get dialing, you know, the numbers and reaching out to people that I've detached from purposely. But when we drink, sometimes there's almost like no future. Whatever you want right now, I become very impulsive.
Yeah.
Everyone has been affected by the disease of addiction. Whether it's themselves, someone they know, it's so much more complicated than what people make it out to be. I wasn't really worried though, but that is the nature of the disease. That is what addiction is. You can't run from the things in your life that happen. That's all I've ever wanted to do, was just pretend they don't exist. Because that would be easier, right? No, it makes it worse because it will catch up with you. It always does. I didn't want to face everything.
But then I started drinking, and then it was a slow descent, you know what I mean? Under the impression that it gave me a bit more, initially it gave me a bit more of an edge, a bit more of an insight into creative ideas, to expand on them, but that soon passed and I just liked it for the buzz, you know, and everything that came with it. And then it became kind of habit. I just think that it would have been all right anyway, you know what I mean? It wasn't something that, you know, I needed to you know, pin to my personality to walk forward in an interesting way, you know what I mean?
You had the confidence already.
Yeah, but it does really, really shrink your world, I think, you know, because you're waking up every day, you're not feeling great, and you don't perceive things in a natural way, you know, you're not yourself. And the more I walk around sober and blah, 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 I just think about it, you know. You didn't have to attach yourself to the pack, you know. That was another thing, everyone was doing it. So you kind of almost felt like an outcast. But did you, you know, the minute you stopped, would you see the world in a different way?
By anyone's measure, Frank Skinner was once a full-blown alcoholic. Or, as he puts it, a Pernod in the morning kind of drinker. More than 30 years ago, he decided to stop and hasn't touched a drop since.
You think you need beer in order to carry on your social life, but you haven't tested it. Try it for, 3 months, see what happens.
I was rather...
You won't, will you?
I might, actually.
You won't. For some strange reason, you need some sort of handrail in your social life, something that takes you somewhere, that makes you a person that you aren't, or you don't feel you are normally. That's the question you got to ask, what that is.
You know, a lot of people, one of their fears about giving up drinking completely is, how will I be able to socialise? I'll never be able to enjoy myself. I'll never be able to do this. I'll never be able to do that. And that's what stops them taking that final step. but it's simply not true.
You're regularly consuming alcohol, it is holding you back.
Even if you're only very periodically consuming it, it's holding you back. There is no positive physiological benefit whatsoever from drinking.
But the facts are absolutely there. It's 100% poison. It's neurotoxic. It's terrible for our brains. It's terrible for our bodies. And yet, it's so prevalent in society. Everybody is searching for optimal health. People are looking for peak performance. They're looking for more productivity in their work. They're looking for how to lose weight. They're trying to get all these things. And yet, they're not realizing that this thing, this daily habit that they're doing, that the whole of society is normalizing, that is the one thing that will give them what they are looking for.
Yeah, alcohol's bad news, and it can turn perfectly good people into quite the impulsive and dim-witted monsters. Well, all the people that I was in high school with and in college with were extremely hard drinkers, and I drank quite a lot till I was 27, and then I found that I found that there was no bloody way I could write seriously and think seriously on an ongoing basis if I was hungover. I thought, enough of this. And so I had a bit of, I thought when I was 50 that I might be able to drink again socially, and I toyed with it for about a year and found out that I was probably just as stupid at 50 as I had been at like 25, and decided to dispense with that too, which was definitely, I've watched too, as I've gone around the world, I've met very, very many people in many, many social occasions, and because I don't drink anything at all now, if I go out and watch people drinking, it makes everybody stupid and fuzzy-minded.
I stopped drinking alcohol for this very reason. And part of the reason is when I wore my whoop and then I had, 1 glass of wine or 2 glasses or 3 glasses of wine the day before, when I woke up the next day, my heart rate variability was like flashing red. It was 30, 40. Typically, on a great day, my heart rate variability is 150, 140, which is strong.
Really strong.
I know this because I compete with my friends. But on a day where I had a glass of alcohol, it'd be flashing red and it would be 40. Also, if I was sick, it would be 40. Also, if I had a really stressful, unslept day the day before, it would also be 40. And the fact that alcohol was causing my heart to respond the same as an awfully stressful, unslept day or COVID, I thought, fuck that. So this is where you come in, doctor.
The American Cancer Society came out and said any alcohol increases your risk of 7 different types of cancer. And I've been talking about this for 30 years because I have scans, and people who drink any alcohol have lower activity than people who don't drink at all. Because alcohol lies to us.
Alcohol lies to us.
Alcohol causes damage in the brain.
Really?
Even a little bit of alcohol causes damage in the brain. It disrupts something called white matter. So gray matter, nerve cell bodies, white matter, nerve cell tracts. So white matter is the highways in your brain that transmit information and impulses. And even a little bit of alcohol has been shown to disrupt the white matter in your brain. I don't want anything messing with the highways in my brain.
Research analysis from the American Heart Association has another reason to cut back. It shows drinking just 1 alcoholic beverage a day can contribute to increased blood pressure.
The main risk factor with high blood pressure is cardiovascular disease, heart attack, stroke. It can also put you at risk for kidney disease.
We've long known that excessive alcohol use is associated to negative effects on our overall health. Now, this new study, as you said, is a large study coordinated by the American Heart Association, over 16,000 people, and they found that having just 1 drink a day was associated with elevations in blood pressure.
Well, does this mean that if someone has high blood pressure, they shouldn't drink at all?
Basically, you hit the nail on the head. So my recommendation overall, what we looked in this study, especially from the data that we have from here, as well as prior data, is that those who had high blood pressure at the beginning of the study generally had worse outcomes. So my tips are, if you're trying to control your blood pressure, you probably should cut alcohol out of your diet.
We're very programmed to seek out rewards and get compulsive about it, gamble, whatever. Nonetheless, it's fucking hard because you've taught yourself this is the only way to ease my pain. I'm in pain, this is the only way to make it better. And I hate to say it, the cure for addiction is suffering. You suffer enough that something inside you goes, I'm done. Because every time I think about it, I'm just like, holy shit, that's the worst idea in the world. I don't want that. I can't do that. And that's the piece that people find. So now I'm that asshole who's like, I'm grateful. I learned a lot. I actually got to be a better person through this process, and I've lost the obsession.
When I finally let go of that, it made me realize that I was capable of great change that I totally rebelled about. I was like, I will master this toxic behavior of mine. As if I could, I just did not think I could ever stop. That was a hamster wheel I'd be on my whole life. I said I knew it for decades, and I just thought, I don't know why, I know I'm going to master this one day. And finally, I just gave it up. So that has led me to believe people can change, because I wouldn't change for decades. Like 4 decades, I went, drinking. And sometimes maybe you're just so sick of yourself that you finally let go, or it's a really challenging thing and you struggle and sweat and scream through the whole thing. Yeah. Whatever it is, I know people are capable of change. So many years that the narrative was for me is this has a hold over you. You will never break this cycle. You are a prisoner of your own weakness. And every time that you fuck up in life, it has to do with this. You don't like yourself. And you're probably going to be stuck in that for the rest of your life because you won't give it up. Because you keep telling yourself one day you'll master this. And the last 3.5 years have been so awesome and so great.
You, I believe, have had a period where you were a little more kind of social than perhaps is sensible.
I don't think I was social. I think that's why I stopped,
So it was a bit mental?
Yes.
And you don't drink now?
No. And now I'm successful.
When did you start? Yeah, you are. When did you stop drinking? How long have you been sober for, as they say?
7 years.
7 years? Wow, that's quite some time. That's quite something. Do you find it hard to stay off the juice, or are you okay with it?
Everybody's different, aren't they? It's like it's their time, but I don't have the compulsion to drink.
Yeah.
And plus, my life is is unbelievably much better today than it
I
was.
bet. And you must be.
I don't miss it.
It was holding me back. It was stopping me develop as a musician. And nothing needed to be said at that stage.
Okay,
I kind of knew it. But I saw the guys in the band who were the same age as me having much more productive lives than me.
They're settling down, families, everything going on with that. And you were watching those 3 guys. This is what you weren't pursuing the same road, so to speak. So what were you thinking?
I was thinking I was having a great time.
So what's wrong? Where did it all go wrong? Then do you think that George Best thing?
I had a string of kind of failed relationships. I had a string of excuses for why my life wasn't going well. I had a string of excuses to explain why I wasn't as good a musician as I aspired to be.
Yeah.
And I just got sick of that. I got sick of it.
I don't want to at this point to be running from anything. I want to sit in it. I want to feel it. I want to get through the rough night. And I found in doing so, you come out the other side with a more profound understanding of yourself, a greater gratefulness for those in your life, and the birds and the trees and everything else.
I can be obsessive, I think.
I don't think I've ever been this hungover.
In your late 20s, you stopped drinking.
Stop drinking, yeah.
Very difficult?
No, beautiful. Unbelievable.
Better.
Oh, are you kidding? I would never be sitting here with you. No way, no chance.
Because?
Because I wouldn't have been able to have access to myself or other people, or even been able to take in other people if I hadn't changed my life. No way.
Happy to say, I was definitely addicted to alcohol, not shying away from that at all. And I just sort of said to myself, why am I enslaved to this drink? Why am I so obsessed by the idea of having this drink? I felt like I couldn't be social. I felt like I couldn't go to the pub and have a lime soda. I couldn't go out for dinner. I was really, really struggling. So I decided that I would wait until my birthday, which is June 1st. I said to myself, if I can do 6 months without alcohol, then I can prove to myself that I don't have a problem. And by the time I had got to June 1st, I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. I could sleep better. I could handle problems better. Things that would go wrong on set that would normally set me off, I could take in my stride. I had so much such better mental clarity. I felt healthier, I felt fitter, and it's honestly been the best thing I've ever done. It doesn't even cross my mind. I found amazing replacements that I think are fantastic. This time, I don't know, it was just different. I really worked to sort of change my mindset. I really asked myself, like, why do you drink? Why are you drinking? And a lot of the time, my answer would be to feel more comfortable in the social environment.
Yeah.
And I just put myself in those environments and just would force myself to be there. I'd force myself to hang out and go to a club or go to a bar, go to a dinner.
So how are you adapting to this new way of living? How are you sitting in it?
It was my first sober Christmas, first sober New Year, and honestly, it was the best I've ever had. So I am happy, I'm grateful, I'm so thankful that this is happening. I'm enjoying it. It's one of my favorite things to like go out and dance and have a good time, but actually have like deep conversations and connections with people. Your life can change if you give yourself a chance to really be who you are and sit in that uncomfortability, because my God, it's uncomfortable for a minute, but it gets better and it's worth it.
Finally, 3.5 years ago, I was like, I can't do this anymore. It doesn't work for me. I'm never going to be that cool girl with the glass of wine at the party. Like, I'll want 3 bottles. Like, that's just my personality. It's my addiction.
You know, I have a wonderful life now, but I had to change it. I had to change my life really drastically. Life is full of, pitfalls, even when you're sober. And you have to, I can deal with them now because I don't have to run away and hide, because I've learned how that if you don't communicate and you don't talk about things, then you're never going to find a solution.
Luckily, I managed with quite a bit of help from a lot of other people and a very good doctor. I managed to put the last drink down, and I haven't picked up a drink in 12 years.
Barry Humphries was hugely influential. I remember the first time that I was in rehab. I've been to like a lot of rehabs in my day, and they put on a video of Barry Humphries talking about sobriety.
You can pick up the gift of life again, and life is very, very funny sober. It's not all doom, gloom, and ginger ale.
That really had a big impact on me. It's actually, I don't know why, but it's quite emotional for me to say that. Like, it doesn't darken and it doesn't become smaller, and, it becomes funny. He did his most offensive, dangerous work sober.
Do you envy me that I can take a drink?
No, I went through about a year, as I guess most recovering alcoholics do. It takes a year for your system to get back to where it was before. Really resenting it sometimes. Other people could drink. Now I have no desire to drink. And I don't envy people who do at all.
Yeah, that's good.
I've seen reports that say an alcoholic can be taught to be a social drinker again, but it isn't so, because his body never really changes.
Yeah.
I think there's some damage that's done that never can be set right again.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever drank, I think I'd probably be back to drinking too much again. And I like life too much without it now. Now that I'm completely free of it, I don't have any desire to ever drink again.